Welcome back to the Something's Wrong Here podcast. I am Randy.
I'm Ken-Zee.
And I'm Brian.
And in the studio tonight, we have the owner of Ganson Weather Group.
Hey, I'm Scott.
Scott, thanks for joining us tonight. We're here to talk about why fortune tellers can get it wrong.
Yeah, I guess. I feel like fortune tellers get it right more often than meteorologists get it right.
It's going to be a long night.
All right.
Definitions are a bitch, man.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, let's start with before we get into definitions. Let's start with definitions.
Okay.
What is weather?
What is weather? Oh, I really should have done a little more homework before this.
You're clearly not certified.
That's right. No,
His qualifications might have been fudged.
no doubt. Weather, don't hold me to definitions here. It is essentially the behavior of the atmosphere, especially in short term, in the troposphere. So it's the lowest part of the atmosphere above the ground that affects all of us in our day-to-day lives.
Okay. Now with that, let's talk about why you're qualified to tell us that and hold you to that. I mean, not hold you to that. Hold you to that? Whatever. Let's get the cliff notes of your resume.
Cliff notes are, so graduated from OU, University of Oklahoma, back a little while ago. Went into the private sector for a handful of years. Ended up going back into grad school because I had learned how to program. And
this is for what?
When I went back to grad school for?
What did you graduate for?
I graduated meteorology degree, my bachelor's in meteorology. Sorry about that. Back in, I think it was 2009, circa that. And then went back to grad school a little while later after working in the private sector for a little while. Went into government work for a little bit. Worked for the Radar Operations Center down in Norman, Oklahoma while I was pursuing my master's degree. Got to my master's in 2012. Yep. And then
good.
Yep, worked. Still continue with the ROC. I did all my research and things with Cooperative National Severe Storms Laboratory down in Norman, Oklahoma as well. And then that was cooperative with the then Cooperative Institute for Mesoscale Meteorological Studies, or CIMS. These are a lot of acronyms.
A lot of acronyms.
Yeah, a lot.
Alphabet soup.
Then actually came back to Kansas City. I worked with Garmin for a little while doing airborne radar, which was pretty awesome.
Nice.
Got to chase storms.
That was one that I understood.
Yeah, no, that was a blast.
You've got Randy back on the same.
I understood one.
Garmin's a good company, too.
Yeah, Garmin was a blast, but ended up getting recruited to work with a company back into the private sector, Verisk Insurance Solutions, or Weather Solutions as they're called now, I believe. And that was, my research was all back in the day on hail detection with radars. So went back and built a bunch of stuff for them, then decided to start my own company. And that's kind of where we are today. I also share my time with an engineering firm that I do work for as well. So.
Nice.
Would you like to clarify who that is?
Oh, yeah. Young and Associates Engineering Services is the firm. So, yeah.
There you go.
Are they good engineers?
They are.
They're fantastic.
You really don't
They're
say
reputable.
Okay.
So
Kenzie doesn't really always have the
I'm still going to hold true that
glowing words for
they're still the
engineers.
smartest dumb people that we probably know.
I've definitely talked some Norton and
The
shit.
meteorologist or the engineers?
Both.
All right, so let's go from
or.
there.
Yes.
You fellas have any questions for him at this point?
No, I'm good. Oh, what was your master's in?
No, that was also meteorology. So I did that with emphasis in polarimetric radar.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah. Your comment about the smartest dumb people. So I had a friend throughout grad school. He's now actually a professor. I won't say where because it could give it away. But he loved the guy to death. So if you're listening, sorry, buddy. But I got to tell the story because it's funny. But instant mac and cheese, right? You'd think it's like the easiest thing in the world to make. And this guy is the smartest human I think I know. He is the only person I know that screwed up instant mac and cheese. He did not drain the water and then just kind of dumped everything in there and
Soup.
Instant mac and soup.
It was.
Yeah,
it was like
cheese
a
soup and
mac
noodles.
and cheese stew.
That's neat.
Did he still eat it?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think he did. I don't know. We were broke college kids.
I was going to say, broken in college. He probably did.
Makes sense, man.
A couple beers, just wash it down.
Yep.
All right. Well, moving into the next question. Everyone here's had to have their roof replaced or a car that got dinged up with hail or something, right?
Just got my roof replaced not too long ago.
Let's talk about insurance and evidence and weather.
Okay.
Let's talk about these things because everyone's now involved, right? Everyone's at the table. I saw Brian shift in his chair over here. He's ready. So, there's a subjective versus objective here. There's visual versus technology. There's information versus misinformation.
Okay.
All three of these things, I think, are all kind of relative.
Yep.
What does the weather community deal with, yourself and others like you, with regard to insurance and pressure from insurance companies?
No, so in what I do now, insurance providers are probably my number one client that hire me to do investigations and things. I would say I have not really ever been pressured by an insurance company to say one way or another, whether or not something happened or didn't happen.
But what about pressure in terms of time frame to get that report out?
Oh, there's always...
There's pressure in a lot of ways. I didn't mean it in one way or the other to say the right or wrong. I meant pressure behind how fast you have to get something out.
Yeah, generally when the insurance company gets involved, if they come to me directly, there's really very little pressure in terms of timing. Generally, I can turn that kind of stuff around. Where you get in trouble is when it goes through someone else. If an engineer had worked on the case and then they decided late on in their investigation to bring in meteorology, sometimes I feel a little bit of a time crunch that way. But no, I mean, the insurance industry, by and large, in my dealing with them, have been all about, we just want to find the answer. We want to know what actually happened at that roof.
Let me ask you this. You go out, you look at it, you see the damage. What makes your position on it special? I mean, what can you do above and beyond the fact that you go out and look like, yeah, it's damaged. It looks like a storm just came through last night. The roof's damaged. They made a claim. What exactly do you do? What is your part in all that?
Yeah, so let's muddy the waters even more. So I never go out to the roofs. I'd be about as useful on a roof inspection as like a third arm, because I don't make assertions on what is damage and what is not damage. That's generally not the meteorologist's job.
Third arms could be pretty useful.
Like a wallpaper.
Depending on the situation.
Yeah.
But no, my role really is to come in and determine, if we go back to our definition of weather, if we go back to meteor, like what happened in the atmosphere, what happened in the air, right? So they bring me in to say, hey, was it even possible? Was there a storm that day that was potentially producing hail that could have been responsible for the damage that an engineer sees or an adjuster sees? Or was there's no signs of damage? Was there still a storm that possibly caused hail and maybe we just need to pay the claim and not fight it? So that's generally where my role comes in, is to lend that missing piece of information, the boots on the ground, to determine something. Now we want to see, okay, let's put the whole picture together.
So you're a little bit like Phil Collins because he can feel it coming in the air tonight.
Yeah, I'm arguably not quite as good of a drummer, but I'm working on it.
He's a pretty good vocalist too.
Yep.
Awful.
So most recently,
Sorry, I've been a dad joke like turbo mode ever since. I think my daughter had a dad joke book, and we had to go to the lake yesterday. We had to go to the lake yesterday for Christmas, and I got to hear them all the way down. And there's a couple good. So my brain is just like
Dad
working
joke.
right
dad
towards
jokes. All right,
right towards
Hey, I'm ready for them.
corny jokes, man.
So most recently, let's go into this insurance a little bit.
Yeah.
I'd have my roof replaced, and this one was, we sat outside and watched the hail hit it. We were standing under the coverage of our front porch roof, watching hail smash into our roof, and then I actually contacted you because of your company and the technology that you possess, which we're going to come to, and I said, hey, did hail hit my roof? And you gave me a report and said, yes, hail hit your roof. I would contact your insurance company.
Pretty sure.
And we did. And so,
There is a cell phone that you could have just pulled out these days. They got a really cool feature called the camera.
oh no, we did that. We did that too. We're coming to it.
That's some advanced shit, dude.
I was going to say they're
crazy.
So I tried to do the legwork, trying to be helpful. And so I also contacted someone for my roof, and I said, hey, I need to get an estimate for my roof, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I never I never actually said the word hail. It came up, obviously, but that roof price came out, and it was significantly cheaper than a lot of the other roofs in our neighborhood. Kind of comical, and mostly because I think we tried to do the legwork before it turned into the insurance claim. That said, we turned it into our insurance, and they sent out an adjuster, and I had all of the dimensions of the roof, the estimates of, the square, they call it squares in the industry. And I had his report, and I had all these things. I had them in a nice file folder, ready to go. I was just trying to be polite and hand them off. And when she showed up, she goes, "Oh, no, I don't want any of that. I like to get on the roof, and I like to visualize the storm, and I can read the roof."
I like that.
And she said, "I've been doing this for longer than you've been alive."
She's visualizing the storm when? After it had already passed?
Does she have an umbrella when she visualizes the storm too?
She said,
amazing.
"I've been doing this longer than you've been alive," which I don't believe for a fucking second, because I think she has me by 5-10 years.
It's like 15 years.
But maybe you looked particularly young that day.
But it gets better. She gets off the roof, and she comes in, and she tells us the sob story about how we are going to be able to get the new roof, but it was only because she's able to look back in her historical data and find this storm from 2000, and I believe it was 21, before we owned the home. And I said, okay, I guess I'm a little taken aback here. She's sitting at my dining room table, and I said, well, we have the hail from the last storm, sizable, and I have a report from a guy who's pretty well up there in the weather world. What gives? She looked me dead ass in the eyes and my person and said, "You guys didn't have hail. You're imagining it. I was up there." And what do you fucking say? I want to know. What do you guys say to that? They're sitting at your dining room table. This is your insurance claim. And as I told my Scott over here, the deity in this situation, the God of right, is sitting here at my table going, "Nope."
I think you just shut your mouth, and she's got a way to replace it, and you move on.
As long as the check's going to be in the mail in like 5 to 7 days, I'm pretty good at that. I'm pretty good at that.
Oh, man.
But yes, that's
You want to argue principle of the matter, don't you?
Well, I just want to know what do you deal with on that level
dubious
sometimes?
beginnings with insurance people, man. Just like, as long as they're writing the check, I really don't care.
right. I mean, as long as that check's coming, I wouldn't care. But to have somebody sit there and say, "Yeah, it didn't happen, and we're going back to 2021." I mean,
It was a little bonkers.
How much did it cost to get your roof replaced?
Overall, it was a total of $2,200.
So just your deductible.
Well, that was out of our pocket.
Oh, okay. That's really cheap.
Yeah, that was very cheap. So it was 14 overall.
Yeah, we had 2 roofs replaced within 5 years of each other back in the early 2000s. Just tons of hail for a while. Tons of hail. And it's like, I remember it being 13 or 14,000 to replace. Smaller house, but it's a smaller house. And then we did this last one. Our first quote was $27,000.
Yeah, it's especially if it's a steep roof.
I'll come up there and do it myself.
We have super high, vaulted ceilings.
For about 15 years in Oklahoma, 2 roofs for 2 houses.
Yeah, I like when they come in and give you an estimate. It's like $3,000 over what it's going to cost. So you get some cash out of it. I didn't do that though. It's not fraud. Like insurance.
Wasn't me.
Moving right along from
adjusters.
Brian's petty crimes.
I mean, I don't know if we want to talk about insurance fraud.
Fucking adjusters.
What are weather people, climate scientists, or
climate scientists.
climate scientologists, meteorologists, climate scientists? What are y'all searching for?
Climate Scientologists.
Scientologists. They're the crazy
I
ones.
didn't know L. Ron Hubbard had much to do with meteorology.
They're just Tom cruising through life.
Do you just pay money to get each level up?
Are you clear yet?
They're just Tom cruising through life.
Yeah, shit. Good one.
So with regard to like climate
Dad
change,
jokes. What the fuck?
is that real?
Oh, climate change is absolutely real. I think the science on it is fairly, close the book on it. It's been done. We know it's happening. I think that there are still lots of arguments in the cause. Was it anthropogenic, cause global warming, climate change? Is it something that's just naturally occurring? There probably are still areas in which there are debatable science in there, especially methods and things like that. But the fact that our climate is changing is fairly undeniable at this point.
That's one thing I wanted to get into also with that, is because, you hear about it, the climate deniers and all this other stuff. In good faith, I would like to think a lot of them understand that as humans, we are damaging the planet. There's no denying that. Sure. I mean, you could not show me one bit of evidence anywhere that is somewhat factual saying humans have not altered the earth in some way.
Sure.
With that being said, I like to think in good faith that, we had 100 million years ago, there was no ice caps. We had higher water tables, no ice caps. We had a warmer, more tropical climate. Date back to 11,000 years ago, you're looking at the end of the Ice Age. We had the ice shelves and everything, and the glacier movements, a lot colder temperatures. From 11,000 years ago up to today, we have been getting warmer. I mean, there's no denying that. We are getting warmer. I think a lot of the people have the issues with, like the Al Gores of the 80s saying, we're going to be dead by the 90s.
In 8 years, our planet's going to be gone.
We're going to be gone because of global warming.
Little hyperbole.
Yeah,
no. Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot today, and I want to get your take because I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of scientists are saying, we can only go up an average of like another 0.8 degrees and then the Earth is doomed. Well, we've been on this gradual incline, decline, now back to the incline. Are we doomed at that point, or do you think it's going to get more tropical and then go through another cycle of cooling? We're also seeing record highs, but we're also seeing record lows. And a lot of people are saying that, it's because of global warming. It's happening because of global warming, which the average brain says, no, that's not right. How can you be global warming be getting colder?
Hold on.
Global warming the wrong term?
The average brain just slurps it up and says, that must be what's right because the scientist person said that.
Okay, I guess, you're right there. So my brain says, well, if we're getting warmer and warmer, how are we also seeing these colder and colder temperatures and records? And to touch on that, what is your thoughts? I mean, are we going just through cycles? And how far back do we have that we're actually dating this data off of from a scientific standpoint? Is it 100 years, 200 years? Because, I doubt we're going back millions of years and saying, well, humans have been damaging it for this long because we weren't around then.
So local TV got their forecast. They chiseled those out every day in the tablet and carried them around.
Had ring girls run through the town, the caves.
The Katie Horner scrolls.
Yeah.
I know I asked a lot in there, but just throw out your thoughts on that, I guess.
No, there's also so much to unpack in there, and I think the place to start is there is no single meteorological event that you can responsibly attribute to climate change. And let me unpack that. Like when a big hurricane hits, you can't say that hurricane hit because of climate change.
Okay.
And when there's a big snowstorm, Jim Imhoff can't run into Congress with a snowball and say, look, climate's not warming because I found a snowball. There's no responsible science that says we can attribute a single meteorological event to climate change, regardless if it's warmer, colder, or whatever.
I think that may be one of the most responsible answers I've ever heard.
So
totally canceled.
Can I ask?
Right? You are going to get canceled.
I want to intercept this one.
Reasonable?
Does that lead us to interpreting trends over time?
So now you get into the distinction between true climate scientists and climatologists and meteorologists. So meteorologists, we focus on the short-term things, right? The things that really affect you right now. Tomorrow there's a storm, where climatology is really looking at the science of how do these long-term trends maybe affect meteorology. How do they affect the way our planet is responding? And there is, to the point you brought up, there is a tipping point in this planet. And what we mean by the tipping point, when you hear people talk about, well, if we warm globally another 0.8 degrees or whatever the number is, I don't know the value off the top of my head. it's what we're saying is that we're tipping beyond the point for us as humans to reverse the changes that have happened during our lifetime, whether they're attributed to us or not, right? And that's the scary thing, is now we're beyond our control to be able to really alter the effects of what we're looking at, right? So that's the scary part of climate change to me, is that there are effects that are going to happen to generations long to come. Are we responsible for it? I think it would be unreasonable to think that we're not as a species.
Yeah, but I can see what you mean, where it's like we can't just say no because this country did this with a factory that definitely caused all that.
It is a global thing, and it disproportionately affects people, and I think that's the unfortunate part. Is
I'm telling you, that's got to be the most reasonable. It's what you said. It's the most reasonable and nuanced answer about it. Because you either get the people who are like, there's nothing, ain't nothing changing, and then the other people who, the Al Gore types that said, in 5 years or Greta Thunberg, we're gonna be dead in 5 years if we don't all do this right now. And it's a really funny thing, because you guys are both, I mean, you are too, and you're scientists, like critical thinker, right? You all I want to do is hear a reasonable argument, and I know that I'm not going to have anywhere near the depth of knowledge of that vertical. So, you trust, it's like trusting experts, right? We love this trust in experts, but I think the climate change and climate change denialists plus, or climate change like freaks, it's like, don't you understand? It's coming. And it's like, that's fine. Can you just give me like one figure that we could go with that says, over the last 100 years, CO2 in the atmosphere has gone up this much, or it's gone down this much, whatever. But it's just like, no, it's just climate change. You need to do this because climate change.
Well, and that's another thing. Like I brought up, you've got these kind of rolling hills of warmer, colder, warmer. And I don't know if you have the answer for this, but do we even have enough data? Are we even capable of grabbing enough data to go back and see that if we stopped everything we're doing now, no more methane, no more CO2, nothing, would we still get those rolling hills where we're moving towards warmer, and then eventually we'll move towards colder? Or is it, I mean, there's no denying we're doing damage. I know that. We're putting stuff in the air every day, smokes, gases, everything.
Cow farts.
Tons of cow farts. I mean,
people farts.
People farts when
every single day.
When they open elevators.
The Chipotles of the world to blame.
Farts again.
No, it's a really interesting question, and I think we harp on CO2 a lot, and it's because it's the one that we most directly probably control and affect as a species. But it's about what we call radiative forcing. It has really not as much to do with the gas or whatever molecule we're spitting out there, and there are still feedbacks at work that we don't fully understand, even as scientists. And I think that's where sometimes, unfortunately, you have the message. I need to put my hands down. Max said I'm talking with my hands too much. I don't know what to do.
Sorry, you're just spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning.
Spirit fingers.
They see me roll.
He's on a roll.
I'm going to grab this microphone here in a minute.
You can talk with your hands. You good?
No, so
he's going to be the only guy that takes it off the stand. Just like, all right, let me hold it.
I'm just going to eat this thing. The unfortunate part of, I'm doing it with my hands again. The unfortunate part of some scientists is the message, which is good, and the message which is actionable, is lost in the alarmist part of it, right? And you have this, we are all going to die if we don't do something, right? And that's not always the case. It's not always the best way to convey your message, right? And that's the unfortunate part. I think that's what you were kind of hinting at. The other thing, though, there are cycles. There are solar cycles. There are I forget the term. I can't think of the term, but there are understood astronomical processes.
Well, like right now we're going through pole changes and stuff, and magnetism stuff. Is that going to affect weather at all?
I'm sure it will in some way that I don't fully understand. Space weather is an area of investigation by certain meteorological specialties. But there are oscillations. There are always going to be oscillations in the weather, and that's because our observation network is undersampled, right? No, even if we have no climate change going on whatsoever, there's still going to be oscillations in the weather because the perturbation of the Earth's orbit around the sun, the period changes of solar cycles. Those things are going to affect how our planet gets heated. And at the end of the day, how our planet is warmed by the sun and heated by the sun drives every bit of weather on this planet. That is the only driver.
So you said something that intrigues the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And I even have a tattoo recently.
I hope it doesn't do that while you're in here, because I would smell if it
Yeah,
shit out of you.
don't shit.
Please.
Yes, this is a small studio
Thank
with
you
a
for the
huge
backup
production
there.
staff over here.
Appreciate
Waved
the
all the
backup.
production
You
staff.
don't want to know. We'll smell it too.
So
This is 4D.
you said space weather,
Yep.
and I have been one of the people that believes personally that we are doing a good job of exploring space outside of what we have to, our planet. But I also believe that we are fully underinvested in our own planet. And I believe that we don't have a goddamn clue what's on our ocean floor. Okay. And I say that because I don't know of the data, but I know that we have less than 10% of our ocean floors mapped.
It's not much.
It's not much.
Yeah.
And
I would imagine we've been 10% for years. It's got to be more.
Again, I'm not.
It's not much.
I'm not here shitting on one tech, shitting on one science, shitting on anyone. I am just saying we have put up a beautiful telescope that can see some awesome stuff. Yeah. But let's also I see a lot of money starting to be pumped into water.
The Webb telescope?
The Webb.
Or the Hubble telescope?
Fascinating
But
what it just did.
With regard to water, I want to see the Webb telescope of the water appear. You know what I mean? I want to see something like that occur. Is there value in understanding our oceans more than space or our troposphere?
Well, absolutely. So the ocean is our largest effector of carbon in our atmosphere, right? Because it has the ability to sink carbon. It has the ability to off-gas carbon into the atmosphere. Understanding the ocean, that's why oceanography is a science in and of itself.
That just sounds made up.
No, that's a real thing. That's
just water.
But it is the single biggest probably regulator of what happens in our surface to air interaction in our planet.
Absolutely.
So, huge. I sadly don't know much about it.
I make fun of it stupidly, but I also am the wholehearted believer behind it. Okay.
Yeah, we can elaborate on that. I mean, just water.
Well, so I just want to bring up one of the things I always think about when it comes to, especially the gloom and doom type climate change folks, is that and it's just maybe it speaks to my my general malaise with people when you use statistics of any kind to qualify things, because most people don't understand statistics. So somebody well-meaning, altruistic, like a genuine scientist, they want to go out and they want to find data and they want to make conclusions. And typically what you see is with something like weather is you model things. You model. This is what we got. We model. Okay. The fucking problem with modeling is that in 5 years, your model is most likely not going to be 100% right. It could be 80% right. It could be 50% right. But the problem is that 50%, guess what that leads to in your 10-year projections, your 15-year projections? That means that you've made these 10, 15-year projections, 20-year projections right at year zero, and you're not adjusting to what happens. So people hear that. Don't you understand? This 20-year study says we're going to be underwater in 15 years. And it's like, after 5 years, they weren't even fucking close to right. And so all I mean is like the model skews, like your model further into time skews further off into bullshit. And like I feel like when I bring that up, when I bring up that fact to people that are big time climate change, like pro climate change, we got to change everything. They literally don't understand what I mean. Like, what do you mean? That model's right. Like, no. They'd love to see if it was right, but it's just like we talk about the joke about weathermen being right so much. It's like
we're always right.
We can't be perfect. and if we guess over time, and we're not absolutely perfect, we're just more and more wrong as time goes along, which is okay. But that's the reason to model. But I think people tend to use those models, those multi-year models, multi-time period, as like this gospel, and it's like it's not gospel. This is just our best effort to see what we see now, what'll happen in 20 years in 5-year increments, and we could definitely be wrong.
Now, we might have to cut this one. This may start to steer into the technology side, but I think some of it is understanding models. And there are many meteorologists who I think misunderstand models, myself probably included in some of that. But at the end of the day, the model is only as good as the inputs into it.
Yeah.
And we know the atmosphere is already undersampled. So that's a huge source of error already. Climate is even worse. As you mentioned, where are these records coming from and things like that? We can get into the observations. We can get into ice core studies. We can get into, how do we pull CO2 and how do we pull temperature records beyond when we just had thermometers? And that is a science.
That's super interesting stuff too.
But-
That's kind of what I was wondering about too. Yeah.
But models in Edward Lorenz and the butterfly equations, the chaos theory, it's not just from Jurassic Park. It is a real thing that slight alterations in the initial conditions of a model lead to a vastly different outcome in the model.
I think you're leading me into a great point here.
All right, all right. So let me finish this thought, and then
Do
let's
that
go
on your
into
chaos
You
theory.
think?
Yeah, and but
He looks confused.
this goes
It's normal,
into
pretty normal look for him.
to understanding some of those models, and I think sometimes there are probably scientists who and others who maybe not just scientists, but maybe media folks or people who have a platform in which to speak, where they grab onto the outliers, right, in the statistics. And many times when we do this model, we do this in a format called cat modeling, is one example where we may run a scenario with just slightly different initial conditions in 1,000 different ways. And then we get an idea, okay, well, this is the mean, this is the average situation. Here's the worst case situation, and here's the best case situation. And oftentimes just the worst cases may be captured, or we don't talk about the median or something. So there's a lot of misunderstanding, I think, in how model studies.
I think it's hilarious how we can just slap the top off what he just said and take that abstraction and say, why is it that the fucking craziest shit from both extremes of the end, why are those always presented as the most likely outcomes? And you could say it like across politics, across
it's
sports, across.
It's funny you
people
should
use
say
it
that.
to spread their message, right? It's what their motivation is.
I thought, what better to entice Randy than to bring politics into this?
Oh boy.
Fuck yeah, guys, let's do it.
Oh boy.
I'm in, dude. I know
All
maybe
right.
it'll make you totally comfortable too. So
It's gonna be brief.
One
it's
rule.
gonna be brief because
You cannot throw your microphone.
You cannot throw your microphone.
there's no
All right,
no brushing your microphone.
We're talking to you, not us. Yeah,
Sweet
look
action.
look up the
you get
religion
name
and
tags?
politics episode.
yeah.
You'll see a lot of.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't fucking like
And then
it.
in 30 seconds, he's right back
I
up
think
talking.
they're all. I think they're all.
But let me grab my mic and tell you guys, and then I'm out.
Let me explain.
Wait, hold on. I'm back in.
One more
One
thing,
second.
I'm just glad I could deflect so we can
One
make
more
fun of
thing.
you for a minute.
That's nice. So bringing politics
Thank
into
you.
it, clearly
Yes,
my
thank
favorite, which is also why we'll be brief. You
brief political
you asshats.
discussion.
His point will be brief. Ours will not be.
It will not. drag
Regardless of
this.
presidential candidate, regardless of election, regardless of who, when, where,
I feel like
why.
irregardless should have been thrown in there once.
I was waiting until he stopped saying regardless.
Yeah. Should we have federal funding for weather?
Yes.
And with you having a quick answer like that, the question
all
that I ask and that I pose, and this is me knowing a little bit, not more than either of you, but
Sure.
having more maybe in-depth conversations about it.
You have an insight.
Insider
With
trading.
regard to where military technology stands and the federal funding behind it, I believe you have to have meteorological presence, and I believe you need a technological standpoint between the two of those, such as like radar, for instance.
Sure.
And so let's talk politics.
Okay.
Scrap your funding, what happens? Scrap government funding from weather, what happens?
So the immediate probably implications to scratching any sort of federal funding to, say, the Weather Service and those companies are our global, or not global, I should say, our domestic radar network. NextRad network, which is run by the National Weather Service, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Transportation, and the Department of Defense, all share the NextRad network. And so immediately, that's gone. So that's all those hail algorithms and things like that run, that people are used to having to fast track their roofs. You're probably looking at a much longer insurance claim process. The next thing
I don't know. That lady that did his, she seemed to know her stuff.
she could visualize
used
the
her
storm
thoughts,
and-
she used
and
her prayers, she used her
I think
eyeballs.
that is admirable. That is a skill I don't possess. So I
You
do
don't
rely on-
manifesting
Lord on
the
the roof.
storm that damaged your roof,
I
young
do
man.
rely
Someone
on
tells
the
me that
radars.
Lauren should not have that job.
We
Eating
might
acid
have
before you climb on roofs is a bad thing.
we did submit a survey.
Oh, well, that's
We did
your
fill
part.
that survey out, and we clarified that thoughts and prayers versus science
To
sometimes.
say thoughts and prayers had
But
to be involved in it.
let's actually. I want to tear
yeah,
apart
yeah.
this.
Yeah.
I want
So
to
we
take
keep-
politics and make it so fucked up tonight.
well.
I don't think you have to do that. You have to work hard.
It's already fucked up.
I want to hear his finishings here, and then I want to tear another question into this one that plays a part.
And again, this is all speculation, but the next thing that happens are the National Centers for Environmental Prediction, which run all of the models that we're used to running, that run on supercomputers and things like this, that there are only a handful of private companies that have the resources and the means to be able to run those. Those are all gone. And so our forecast capability becomes diminished, which is no good.
So it goes from 5% right to 0%
Right, yeah, like that.
4.5%.
I mean, I thought we were starting at 50, but now, damn, we're down to 5. So that's rough. So now all of a sudden
crowd, man.
our
Tough
forecast capabilities become diminished, and then you start getting into observations such as surface observations, all those weather stations you see at the airports and things like that. If that funding goes away, then air travel could, potentially become dangerous, right? Or so who's going to take over running all of those stations? Who's going to run the buoys? Who's going to do that?
So you're pretty steadfast in the opinion that federal funding needs to exist.
There has to be federal, unless you can show me a consortium of private sector companies who are going to step up to foot the bill, because these are sync.
I wouldn't say
Well, I
the
think-
weather probably isn't a large money making.
I think that's my question though, is that if say that was gone.
Sure,
Okay, say
yeah.
the vacuum is created, right?
Yep.
Is there again, I'm just being devil's advocate. Could you see there being a way where capitalism would fill the gap? Obviously, because they got to be able to monetize something, right? Right.
And in fairness, we see hits of it. There are companies like Tomorrow.io who are launching small satellites into orbit. These are like down-firing radar satellites but the capabilities are still not there, like the GOES system that we're used to seeing when we see beautiful hurricane images and things like that. Those are not coming from private sector satellites at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think of companies like Climavision, who are doing a great job of filling in gaps in our radar network. But these are different radar frequencies.
But who's funding a lot of that? I mean, are they getting
private
government?
sector companies?
They're private, but are they getting funding or a
Are they getting
portion?
subsidized
Are they
with
getting
grants from the
subsidized by the government through contracts or?
There are municipalities, like city municipalities and things I know that help offset some of like the Climavision costs. I'm not 100% sure on some.
We're not here to paint you into a corner.
No, you're good.
I am.
So let me detract and let me make this politically even better.
Let's do this.
This is my favorite thing that weather has created. Let's talk about the act of God, because we obviously have to separate church and state, but we have federal
There's no
funding.
law saying you have to church.
I'm just curious, what is the act of God and weather?
What is the act of God and what?
Or is that just something insurance?
I think it's more of an
companies say to
insurance
not
term
pay?
than it is a weather term.
Is that just something
Basically,
insurance
don't
companies say
touch
to not pay?
it. Don't touch it, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. But the second you touch it, you become responsible for it.
I'm just curious.
I don't know. I mean, it is an act of God. I've seen insurance cover like lightning strikes, and was that an act of God?
I know that you've been.
I think of act of God like Final Destination. Do you remember that movie? That where like
There's another one coming out this year.
they're doing another one.
Fucking
I
franchise.
think they're on a boat or something like that, or a cruise.
5 years too long, man.
Having spoken with you, I know that you've seen some what I would describe as act of God tornadoes.
I have seen some very sobering tornadoes, and I've been.
You've volunteered in cleanups and such after that.
We've come across.
Being in Oklahoma, you probably saw quite a few fingers of God.
It was.
What is it, F5?
There,
Arms.
I like that. What is that?
Yeah, F5.
Toes.
All right, what was the
Wait,
question?
actually,
Sorry.
I think he saw the whole hand of God, which is Maradona.
Was it the hand of God or finger of God? They call the F5s.
We'll come around full circle.
We've gone through football again.
Football versus football. All right. Sorry. Acts of God. So that's just something insurance companies say to not pay.
I don't know about that.
He can't answer that
Is
one.
hail
Please
considered an act of God?
I am a a hopeless sort of what do they call it? Secular humanist. So I believe that we can figure all things out through science. But certainly there's probably a gray area in there where there's an area where science can't explain something, and insurance is like, well, we can't cover that either. So. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know what a weather-related act of God.
That's a funny dichotomy, right?
Okay, so going into another topic here,
Totally clapped for you.
I believe there's some sort of a paradigm shift.
Got the clap on.
Jeez, these guys are still talking about the clapping because it breaks our media.
Sorry, man.
Couldn't stop laughing at
These children.
the clap.
So I think there's a paradigm shift
There's
because
a pill for that, dude.
Penicillin.
Oh man. So paradigm shift. Third time's a charm. There is a paradigm shift.
Yeah,
I swear we'll let him get it out
and I think
eventually.
if you and I think what I'm saying with regard to that is
Eventually.
looking at historic events, there's a lot of early warning and advancement in early warning systems. I don't know that the terminology here is, or early warning systems is what I'm using.
Okay.
I think that jives with what you're understanding. And then now you look at something pop culture, Twisters hits, because Twister referenced early warning.
Okay. Yep.
And Twisters is now talking about, can we kill him?
Sure.
And obviously, in this little breakdown of bullshit, we had Randy suggest nuking them, which brilliant.
This was actually
Probably
this was a
Hey, man.
We talked about nuking a hurricane at one
He
point.
did his research.
But
I did.
what I want to know is
hours of YouTube
where do you stand with
Quoted
this?
old Trumpy Trump.
With are you too fucking done?
He
this
said Trump and
paradigm
Max
shift.
eyes.
You said politics. You want to bring politics in, and we're just like chomping at
It was Trump's idea. Who wanted to
meat.
nuke the what was it? A tropical storm or a hurricane or
Hey,
a,
Randy, remember that part 2 is technological advancement and whether we're going to bring up nuking.
sweet.
So right now, going back on historic events, we've got tornadoes in Moore, Oklahoma. We've got tornadoes in Joplin, and I had a personal friend affected by one of those. Let's be real; those are early warning systems. And I for everyone out there, just so there's a disclosure, this is my older brother. This is my older brother, and I can remember him being genuinely
better
upset.
I think.
And
On the record.
pretty low floor, dude.
for fuck's sake. But I wanna come back to a conversation we had a long
I can
time
cut
ago.
that so nobody knows if you really want me
He
to
doesn't look Amish.
cut that out.
All right.
There's
We had a conversation.
we did, and it was after a tornado in Oklahoma where a guy on TV, big face, said, "Get in your car and run," and you said, "What the fuck?" And
That might have happened. I don't.
and the thing
might be
about it is, that's one of those.
Sum up.
I don't want to dive into too much of the abstract on this, but
5-year-old you had a potty mouth.
understanding the paradigm shift with early warning systems versus killing a tornado.
Proactive.
What are your thoughts on
proactive
things
versus
here?
reactive.
Like, where do we stand, and what is realistic? Is any part of Twisters possible? Like, I've heard Reed Timmer's version, and I've heard other people's version, and they say there is a lot of beautiful idea there.
Yeah. No. Wow. There's so much. My favorite phrase to unpack in that statement. Let's start with early warning and what that looks like. So, I think of early warnings are only as good as the actionable information you can give people. I look at things like Hurricane Katrina, where despite ample warning, there were individuals who refused to evacuate, and there was still a huge humanitarian crisis that unfolded after Hurricane Katrina, and and again, some of after that event, there was multiple introspection, I think, in the Weather Service and the Hurricane Center on how to convey danger to people, how to convey threats to people in a way that they'll actually respond to them. And so that's one huge thing that has to be solved. And I don't think we've still solved it yet to this day, because you fast forward into the Joplin tornado you brought up in 2009. Mm-hmm. The crisis in that is that it was a very well forecast severe weather day. Everybody knew for days that severe weather was possible on this day.
I was actually referring to the Joplin tornado, or this was a tornado in Iowa, sorry, but the Joplin tornado, the Iowa tornado was where
talking about the derecho?
This was, I think it was about 2 years ago now. I'd have to look it up.
It's Cedar Rapids, man.
That said, I had a friend who lost a significant portion of her family, and it's fucking tragic.
It is horrible, and
that's where the early warning still, to me, is a problem, because I know this person. I see this person's pain every time I see her post on Facebook, and at the same time, I also question, are we even talking about killing tornadoes? Unpack it.
So just to kind of finish the thoughts on the early warning thing, it's only as good as the reliability and the actionable information we can give people. And part of that conversation is also false alarms, right? Is that we don't always get it right. It's still an undersampled science, and that's what happened in Joplin. Is there were multiple there were multiple tornado warnings throughout the day that did not result in an actual tornado on the ground, and sadly, the one that did really affect people was a tornado warning that was largely ignored, sadly, because there was just so much false alarm on that day, regardless of it being a very well forecast event. Everyone knew that there was going to be severe weather that day. So that is still a real problem that we have to solve. And then you get into the second part that you said. Let's say let's play hypotheticals, and it is a very well-known severe weather situation that's going to unfold. And let's say we have the technology to do something about it, whether it be nukes or whether it be space lasers.
I heard about the Jewish
those turn frogs gay.
Those are terrible. Yes, they do. But if you have a blue roof, remember you're safe if you have a blue metal roof.
Is that what you got to do to keep it?
You have a neighbor over here that's got one. You ever see this?
So blue roofs. I mean, maybe the color of our roofs helps. But
I hope we don't get feedback from the tinfoil around your headphones.
My Faraday headphones.
All right, going back into the actual expert.
So that's another episode of YouTube's going to just say you can't have.
The question of weather modification that I always bring up is, should we? And this is, Ian Malcolm, Jurassic Park. This is my second Jurassic Park reference of the night here. But, we don't want to get caught up in whether or not we could and forget about whether or not we should, right?
Yeah.
And the point being here is severe weather and all weather happens because of an imbalance in the atmosphere. It's happening to correct some sort of fluid dynamics or thermodynamics imbalance in the atmosphere. And if we prevent that correction from happening, that imbalance will go on unchecked. Potentially, this is all hypothetical still, but eventually the Earth will win, and eventually the atmosphere will win.
So nature bats last.
Just like the casino, man, house always wins.
Do we want to be in the way when that happens? And as tragic as tornadoes are, and I've lived in Oklahoma for 15 years, I've seen firsthand the tragedy of tornadoes and the loss of life and how it affects people, and it sucks. But to turn a relative small tragedy into something of a crisis is probably something we don't want to meddle with. But.
Yeah.
So with all that, I think we're now here to highlight you a little bit.
Oh boy!
Let's talk about Ganson Weather Group.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to talk about real quick with
is this a tech advance?
No.
Okay.
With the Brian's gonna like this one.
English.
Old Pliny the Elder.
Oh yeah.
He documented frogs and fish falling from the sky.
Yeah.
And we've had, I get the specifics of it. Basically, a tornado, a jet stream, or something brings them up. Why is it always just like one specific animal when it does? I know it's very rare, but do you know anything about it?
So Interestingly, I just got a text message a couple weeks ago from some engineers who just went out to do a site inspection. I can't remember if it was from Hurricane Helene or Hurricane Milton, but found fish on the roof.
Nice. That's cool. Interesting.
It does happen, and animals do get picked up.
But with that, I mean, they probably saw debris and everything else, but I'm more talking about like the events where just like thousands of frogs fall out of the sky, or I mean, does it just happen to be that it sweeps up a certain area and we don't pay attention?
Are you asking a weatherman to explain a plague?
Oh, no.
So
Close.
Sounds like the movie Magnolia. He's like, please tell me what happened in Magnolia.
yeah, I mean that movie was a little out there, but
That's one of the less out there parts of the movies, the frogs.
yeah,
I don't
so
remember that part.
certainly it can happen. I don't really have, unfortunately, any good information on frogs. I do know that in Florida, there's been documented cases where you'll get a flash freeze or something, and iguanas fall on people. So I think it's just probably the exposure and how much a certain species probably is subject to certain weather phenomena.
But remember, you're still at the liberties of the people observing said phenomena too.
Yeah.
So unless there's people on the ground doing real
data,
Which is
data
by
observation.
description undersampled.
See me with my phone going, holy shit! That's not real.
Well, I mean,
it's something, but it's
They had
Okay,
an episode
boomer.
of just what was it, raw meat falling out of the sky?
yeah, that sounds like
Come to find out, it was just vulture vomit.
yeah.
A
that's
big
getting barfed on.
flock went over and
Well, with the vulture vomit wrapped up, I guess we're gonna go
I don't have
ahead and
anything intelligent.
highlight.
no, there's nothing good to go with
Scott
that one.
over here. So tell us about, without going into the advancements on your tech, so to speak, yet, because we're going to cover that in the next one.
Okay.
What, highlight yourself. What do you got going on? Ganson Weather Group. You've got a beautiful history in the weather, community. Everyone I've talked to pretty highly regarding you. There's a lot of people that say you're pretty ingenious in the way that you think in this field.
Who are those people? I want to go send them Christmas cards.
Could you tell me who they are?
We're not really here to dox people,
I'd like to
but
talk
let's
to
just
them.
say that a lot of your previous cohorts had nice things to say. Highlight yourself, Scott. What do you got going on for the people?
What? Man. So, right now I'm furiously working on getting. I kind of did this proof of concept app and out there, and I'm trying to get that out there with my own company. Really, what I am highlighting doing is I want to continue to bring weather as a service to people, and I want to make it approachable for other developers, other technology people to just. Hey, how can I get good weather information and things that's really state of the science? I continue to fund myself to go to conferences and present and do new research. So that it's really just bringing some of the understandings of especially what radars can do.
So what
that's where I
API?
live.
So what API can I leech off you, and what can I do?
We'll be in touch. I'm hoping to do that this storm season. I really want to release some new stuff.
Cool.
I use my own work behind the scenes. I specialize in forensic meteorology, so I do all these investigations, and I have all this stuff written software-wise that I run in the cloud. And I want to start to expose some of that technology to people to use it, not just me. So it's not just me writing a report. It's Brian wanting to say, "Hey, man, I want that kick-ass Halo algorithm. How do I get my hands on it?"
No, so all I wanted to bring up was we covered a couple different kind of individual topics, but what I wanted to bring up that I found interesting because one was from weather, one is from something else. Is like this they trust the experts phenomenon.
Yeah.
Where it's like, because you talked about early warning for storms. It blows my mind that, because I'm going to be honest, like I understand innately that weather people aren't always right. They're working with models, they're working on data, they're observing patterns, right? We're just matching patterns. And it still kills me to this day that there are people that are like, I see that funnel cloud over there, but I think I'm going to ride it out here. I'm safer. It's like, it's like, it reminds me of all this. Like, I thought that was going to be your political reference because that's
I
where.
believe it's a yee with a 12 gauge in the right hand.
That's where politics kind of comes in. It comes back to COVID to me. Trust the experts, trust the science. It's like, no, and both sides were saying that, but they had different kind of approaches to it.
We're going to address that for sure in that next part with the tech advance, I think.
Okay.
No questions.
I still want a final thought.
It's
I
interesting.
still love your final thought. I do. I love it. I want to cover it deeply on the
He's
next
going to
one.
say,
The Navier-Stokes equations that we use for fluid dynamics still have no analytical solution.
Lovely.
So you can leave that final thought with that.
So it's an infinite thought.
It's not infinite. It's maybe there's still just stuff out there to discover.
Always more questions.
Yeah.
It's always more questions.
So we're going to jump ahead to episode 2.
I got to pee.
Part 2. I know. And so we're going to get back with Scott, check out the second episode, and we are out for this one.